Hello, and welcome back to Pause Café, the podcast where we slow down, grab a warm drink, and have a real conversation in English. I am Sophie.
And I am David. Welcome back, everyone. It is so wonderful to have you here with us today.
Whether you are a returning listener, hello again, we missed you, or this is your very first time joining us, welcome. You have found a good place to practice your English.
Absolutely. And just a little reminder of what we do here at Pause Café. We have natural, genuine conversations about topics that matter. Topics that make you think, that make you feel something, that give you real, useful English that you can actually use in your life.
And today's topic is very much one of those. But before we get into it, David, how are you? How has your week been?
Honestly, Sophie, my week has been a little overwhelming. And ironically, it is connected to today's topic. I found myself spending way too much time on my phone this week, just scrolling. And then suddenly an hour had gone by and I had no idea what I had actually looked at.
Oh, I know that feeling so well. It is like a black hole sometimes.
Exactly. And the worst part is, afterwards I felt vaguely unsatisfied, like I had eaten a lot of food, but none of it was nutritious. Full, but not nourished.
That is such a good analogy. Mental junk food.
Exactly, mental junk food. Which, now that I think about it, is a perfect introduction to today's episode.
It really is. So, listeners, today we are talking about social media. And not just what it is, because I think everyone knows what it is at this point, but what it has done to us. How it has genuinely changed the way we think, the way we communicate, the way we see ourselves and each other.
This is a topic where everyone has an opinion, and we want to hear yours too. So as always, the comments are open. Tell us what you think.
But first, and we say this every episode because we mean it, if you are enjoying Pause Café, please like this video. It makes an enormous difference in helping other English learners find us. And please subscribe if you have not already. Hit that bell notification so you never miss a new episode.
And if you know someone who is working on their English, a friend, a family member, a colleague, please share this with them. It costs you nothing and it could genuinely help them. Okay, let us get into it.
So David, let me start with a question that might seem simple, but actually is not. When did you first join social media? Do you remember?
I do remember, actually. It was Facebook. I think I was about 16 or 17, and it felt incredibly exciting at the time. You could see what all your friends were doing. You could post photos. You could write on people's walls. Do people even say that anymore? Writing on someone's wall?
I do not think so. That phrase feels very 2009.
It really does. But at the time, it felt revolutionary. Like, suddenly everyone was connected. You did not have to wait to see your friends at school to find out what they were up to. You could just check.
I had a similar experience. For me, it was also Facebook first, then later Instagram. And I remember that early feeling of excitement, the little dopamine hit when someone liked your photo or commented on something you posted.
Dopamine. Let us explain that for our listeners who might not know it. Dopamine is a chemical in the brain that is released when we feel pleasure or reward. It is the same chemical involved in things like eating delicious food, falling in love, achieving a goal. And social media platforms are very deliberately designed to trigger dopamine release.
That is such an important point. These platforms are not designed by accident. There are entire teams of brilliant engineers and psychologists working to make them as engaging and, honestly, as addictive as possible.
The like button, the infinite scroll, the notifications, all of it is engineered to keep you on the platform as long as possible.
And it works. The average person spends something like 2 to 3 hours a day on social media. Some people significantly more.
Which adds up to weeks of your life every year.
Weeks. And I think when you put it that way, weeks of your life, it really makes you stop and think.
It does. But I want to be balanced here. because I do not think social media is simply a bad thing. It has genuinely changed the world in some remarkable, positive ways as well.
Absolutely. Let us talk about that. What do you think are the most significant positive changes social media has brought?
Well, connection, first of all. Real, meaningful connection. I have friends from university who now live in different countries, and without social media, I would have genuinely lost touch with them. We see each other's lives. We can message instantly. We share things that make each other laugh or think.
That is real and important. And for people who are isolated, elderly people, people with disabilities, people living in remote areas, social media can be a genuine lifeline, a way to feel part of a community when otherwise they might feel very alone.
Absolutely. And then there is the sharing of information and ideas. The way social media has democratised information, given ordinary people a platform to share their knowledge, their experiences, their creativity.
A young woman making educational videos in her bedroom can reach millions of people who could never have accessed that knowledge otherwise. A small business owner can find customers all over the world. An activist can organise a movement.
The Arab Spring, for example, the political uprisings across the Middle East in the early 2000s, social media played a significant role in how people organised and communicated.
And during the pandemic, for all its problems, social media helped people stay connected, share accurate health information, support each other through an incredibly difficult time.
So yes, the positive potential is enormous.
But
But there is always a but.
there is always a but. And I think the honest conversation has to include the ways it has also caused real harm. And not just vague theoretical harm, real, documented, measurable harm to real people.
Where do you want to start?
Let us start with mental health, because I think this is where the evidence is most worrying. There is now a significant body of research, particularly looking at teenagers and particularly at girls, showing a clear link between heavy social media use and increased rates of anxiety, depression, and poor self-image.
And I think the mechanism is fairly clear. When you are constantly looking at other people's highlight reels, the best moments of their lives, carefully curated and filtered, you are unconsciously comparing yourself to an unrealistic standard.
Highlight reel. That is such a useful phrase, listeners. A highlight reel is originally a sports term. It means a collection of the best moments from a game or a season. When we use it about social media, we mean that people only post the best version of their lives. The beautiful holiday, not the argument they had at the airport. The delicious dinner, not the evenings they spent alone feeling sad.
And when you are bombarded with other people's highlight reels all day, it is very hard not to feel that your own life is somehow lacking. Even when intellectually you know it is not real, emotionally it still affects you.
I notice it in myself, honestly. I will be having a perfectly nice day, feeling content, and then I spend 20 minutes on Instagram and suddenly I feel vaguely inadequate. Like I should be doing more, achieving more, looking better, travelling more.
And that feeling is not accidental. It is, in a very real sense, what the platforms need you to feel, because inadequacy drives engagement. If you feel good about yourself, you might put your phone down. If you feel like you are missing out, you keep scrolling.
That is quite a dark thought, is it not?
It is, and it connects to something called FOMO, fear of missing out. Listeners, do you know this expression? FOMO. FOMO. Fear of missing out. It means the anxious feeling that everyone else is having more fun, more success, more experiences than you are, that you are somehow being left behind.
FOMO has always existed as a human emotion, of course. But social media has amplified it enormously. Because now you can see in real time exactly what you are missing. Someone posts a photo from a party you were not invited to. You see your colleagues went for drinks without you. You watch a friend's holiday photos while you're sitting in your flat on a Tuesday evening.
And the constant availability is key. It is not like reading a magazine once a week and seeing glamorous people in it. It is every hour, every day, on the device that never leaves your hand.
Okay, I want to talk about something that I find particularly concerning, and that is misinformation. Because social media has created a genuine crisis around truth and facts.
This is so important. Can you explain what you mean by misinformation for our listeners?
Of course. Misinformation means false or inaccurate information that is shared, often without the intention to deceive. People share it because they genuinely believe it is true. The related word is disinformation, which is false information that is deliberately spread to mislead people. Both are huge problems on social media.
And the reason social media makes this so much worse is the algorithm. The algorithm, the system that decides what content you see, tends to prioritise content that provokes a strong emotional reaction. Outrage, fear, shock. Because those emotions make you engage. You click, you comment, you share.
And false or exaggerated information tends to provoke stronger emotional reactions than calm, accurate information. So the algorithm, without any intention to be harmful, ends up promoting misinformation simply because it gets more engagement.
It is a deeply uncomfortable design flaw with enormous real-world consequences. We have seen it affect elections, public health, think about vaccine misinformation during the pandemic, and even violence when false rumours spread quickly and people act on them.
And the speed is the problem. A false story can travel around the world before the correction has even been written.
Which is why I think media literacy, the ability to critically evaluate the information you consume online, is one of the most important skills of the 21st century.
Completely agree. Listeners, this is something really worth thinking about. When you see a story or a claim on social media, before you share it, ask yourself, where does this come from? Who wrote it? Can I verify it somewhere else? Is this trying to make me feel something in order to make me share it?
Those are such important questions. Okay, I want to shift to something that I think is a bit more nuanced, and that is the question of identity and social media. Because I think social media has fundamentally changed how people, especially young people, understand themselves.
In what way?
Well, think about it. Previous generations formed their identity largely through private experience. You went through things, you reflected on them, you figured out who you were. That process happened mostly in your own head, with your close friends, maybe in a diary.
Whereas now, for a lot of young people, identity is performed publicly. You are not just figuring out who you are broadcasting who you are. And that broadcast gets immediate feedback in the form of likes and comments.
And that feedback shapes how you see yourself. If you post something and get a lot of positive response, you feel validated. You feel that version of yourself is acceptable and likeable. If you post something and get silence, or worse, negative comments, that can genuinely affect your sense of self-worth.
Which is an enormous amount of power to give to strangers on the internet.
Enormous. And it creates what some psychologists call a performance of the self rather than a discovery of the self.
That is a really interesting distinction. You are performing rather than discovering. Because performance requires an audience, and an audience has expectations, and those expectations can constrain you.
You might avoid posting certain things, opinions, aspects of your personality, experiences, because you are afraid of how the audience will respond.
And over time, that self-censorship can mean that the version of you that exists online is not really you at all. It is a character you have constructed to be liked.
Which, when you think about it, is actually quite lonely. You are surrounded by thousands of followers and you have never felt less known.
That is very well put, David.
Thank you. I have my moments. Okay, let us have our debate. I want to hear your strongest argument.
Oh, I am ready. Debate question. Should social media platforms be more strictly regulated by governments?
Ooh, I know this is controversial. I will take the pro-regulation side. I think, yes, absolutely. These are extraordinarily powerful platforms that shape public opinion, affect mental health, spread misinformation, and influence elections. That is too much power in the hands of private companies with financial incentives that do not always align with public good.
And you think government regulation is the answer?
I think some regulation is necessary. The way we regulate pharmaceuticals, for example. You cannot just sell any drug you like without proving it is safe. Why should you be able to run a platform that demonstrably harms teenage mental health without any accountability?
That is a compelling argument. But, and I do feel strongly about this, I am worried about who does the regulating. Governments regulating what content is allowed on platforms is a very short step from governments controlling information and suppressing dissent.
That is a real concern.
We have already seen governments in authoritarian countries use exactly that logic to shut down platforms or force them to remove content that criticizes the government. I do not want to hand that kind of power to any government, even a democratic one.
So what is your alternative?
I think it is more about transparency and accountability than control. Force the platforms to be transparent about how their algorithms work. Give users much more control over what they see. Hold platforms legally accountable for hosting demonstrably illegal content. But do not let governments decide what ideas are allowed.
That is a more nuanced position than I expected.
I am full of surprises.
You really are. I think we actually agree more than we disagree on this one. The problem is the power, and the question is how to rebalance it without creating new problems.
Exactly. It is one of the most important political and social questions of our time, honestly.
Completely. And I do not think anyone has fully solved it yet.
No. But conversations like this, asking questions, thinking critically, not just accepting things as they are, that is how we start to.
I love that. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to ask you something personal, Sophie. Have you ever taken a break from social media? A deliberate break?
Yes. About 2 years ago, I deleted Instagram from my phone for 3 months. And the first week was genuinely strange. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, opening the space where the app used to be, putting the phone down, picking it up again.
Phantom scrolling.
Exactly. Phantom scrolling. But after about 10 days, something shifted. I started to notice things more. I read more. I felt less anxious. I was more present in conversations because I was not half thinking about whether something would make a good post.
That is fascinating.
And when I went back, I had a much healthier relationship with it. I could scroll for 10 minutes and then genuinely put it down. The compulsion had been broken.
I think I need to try that.
I highly recommend it. Even a week, just 1 week. Listeners, have you ever tried a social media detox? Tell us in the comments. We would really love to know your experience.
Yes, please. And with that, it is time for today's phrase. Every episode, we leave you with something practical you can use right away.
Today's phrase is, to take something with a pinch of salt. A pinch of salt. It means to not completely believe something, to be a little bit skeptical. For example, I read that article, but I took it with a pinch of salt because I did not recognize the source. Or, he said he could finish the project in 1 day, but I am taking that with a pinch of salt. A pinch of salt.
It is such a useful phrase and so relevant to social media. When you are scrolling and you read a dramatic headline, take it with a pinch of salt until you have verified it.
Perfect. Okay, everyone, we are at the end of episode 3, and what a conversation it has been.
Social media. It is complicated. It is powerful. It is not going away. But maybe, after today, you will look at it just a little differently.
We hope so. And remember, if you enjoyed today's episode, please like this video. It genuinely helps us grow and reach more English learners around the world.
Subscribe to Pause Café if you have not already. And turn on notifications so you are always the first to know when a new episode drops.
And please, share this with a friend who is learning English. You might just make their day, or their week. Or honestly, you might change the way they think about social media.
From Pause Café, thank you so much for spending this time with us. You are the reason we do this.
Take care of yourselves. Put your phone down occasionally. Go outside. Talk to people face to face.
And we will see you in the next episode.
Bye for now.
Goodbye, everyone.